don't ask somebody else to clean it, because that's gross. See you next week.
Well, good morning and welcome to Saturday, February 23rd. We're so glad to have you. I'm Christy Paul.
I'm Victor Blackwell. Our top story this hour, the crisis in Venezuela escalating this morning as protesters burn tires and police fire tear gas to scatter crowds. To the stalemate over humanitarian aid.
New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft facing charges of soliciting prostitution. Police said Kraft was caught in a large-scale sex trafficking crackdown, leading to hundreds of arrest warrants.
And R&B singer R. Kelly is due in court today. He turned himself in to police last night after being indicted on 10 counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse. You are in the CNN newsroom.
We're so glad to have you with us. Let's start with those charges being made against singer R. Kelly this morning. He's 51 years old, accused of committing sexual acts on 4 victims, including 3 under the age of 17. And here is video as he turned himself in.
Now, according to prosecutors, the abuse dated back as far as 1998 and spanned more than a decade. If convicted, he faces up to 70 years in prison, 10 years for each count of sexual abuse. CNN's Nick Watt joins me now. So, Nick, a bond hearing is scheduled for this afternoon for Kelly. What are we expecting? What do Cook County prosecutors want for him?
Well, I think that they would like to keep him in custody, but we will find out at lunchtime whether he is released on bond or whether he stays in their custody. We've actually just heard from the Sheriff's Department. They say he is now in their custody and he's being held apart from other detainees. They say that that is standard practice for a high-profile person such as R. Kelly. Now, we heard last night from his lawyer, who gave us something of a clue as to what their defense is going to be. Take a listen.
Do you think these women are lying?
Yes.
All of them?
I think all the women are lying, yes. Unfortunately, the state's attorney now succumbed to public pressure, to pressure from grandstanders like Michael Avenatti and Gloria Allred, and brought these charges. Mr. Kelly is strong, he's got a lot of support, and he's going to be vindicated on all these charges, one by one if it has to be.
Now, you heard that lawyer mention Michael Avenatti there. That is because Michael Avenatti has a video that he says shows R. Kelly engaged in sexual acts with a 14-year-old girl. He handed that over to authorities here in Cook County a couple of weeks ago, and Avenatti said yesterday he knows of 2 more tapes, one that he has in his possession, another that he is trying to get a hold of, and he will hand those over as well. As you mentioned, Victor, 10 counts, 4 women, 3 of those women under the age of 17 years old. R. Kelly, of course, has faced similar accusations in the past. He was acquitted, in fact, back in 2008 on similar charges to this because the jury said that they couldn't, beyond a reasonable doubt, identify Avenatti in the video that was used during that case. Now, those pictures that you're seeing right there, interestingly, the lawyer had tweeted earlier that R. Kelly was going to turn himself in between 11 and 12 at night in Area South, way in the south of Chicago. In fact, that was not the case. And thankfully for us, our CNN photographers, Jordan Gazzardo and Mike Love, are smarter than that. And that is why we got these pictures of R. Kelly turning himself in. We're next going to see him lunchtime here in Chicago at that bond hearing when we'll find out what's next for R. Kelly. Does he stay in custody or do they release him on bond? Back to you guys.
All right, we'll get the latest developments then. Nick Watt, thanks so much. Now, the docuseries Surviving R. Kelly, which aired last month, reignited the public's interest in the accusations against the singer.
Yeah, and earlier this morning we talked with the executive producer and one of Kelly's alleged victims, Lisa Van Allen. And she talked to us about how she first met Kelly. She was just 17 years old.
You met R. Kelly, you say, when you were 17 years old.
Yes.
And this was a video shoot.
Yes, here in Atlanta.
Music video shoot here in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And from what you describe in the documentary, there was grooming early on. Explain that, if you would.
He pretty much right away tells you what he's into, what he likes, what he doesn't like. He also, during sexual acts, the whole time. He's telling you exactly what to do, what not to do, what he likes, what he doesn't like. So, yeah.
It was interesting because at that time you said, I didn't assume that he liked younger girls. At that moment, I thought he just liked me.
Yes.
At what point did you realize something was very off here?
There wasn't just one time. It would be reoccurring things where, I was getting older. I'm 19. The girls are still 18, 19. I'm turning 20. You're still 18, 19. You get what I mean? And then it was like, eventually it was like, okay, he likes young girls. It's not just me. It's not just the rumor about Aaliyah, which isn't a rumor, but you know what I mean?
Tamara, obviously we're going to have to wait for the evidence to come out in this case, in these 10 counts. But does this time feel different as it compares to the 2002 charges, the 2008 trial? Does this feel different?
I mean, to me, it does. I didn't follow the 2002 trial in depth, but I will be following now because have Lisa to thank for being so brave and the other survivors and families that are still fighting to get their daughters back. But I think that now there's so much in like I was saying, in the public's face, you can't turn a blind eye to it. So I do believe that they're going to do their due diligence and make sure that this doesn't continue to happen.
Yeah. And I would like to just put out there that, he's always kind of been in your face about it anyway. He calls himself the Pied Piper. And, the Pied Piper takes, if you know anything about the book, the Pied Piper lures children away from their families. He's known for doing that. My book is Surviving the Pied Piper. It gets more in depth about that.
And there were descriptions that we had from Sarah Seidner, who we'll get back to in just a moment, that really kind of mirror what you described in the documentary of having to call him daddy and not speaking to other people.
Yes.
Tell us about, you said that you were involved with R. Kelly and another girl who was 14, but you didn't know she was 14 at the time.
No.
Okay.
I was 17. He told me she was 16.
Okay.
Yes.
But you expected he knew how old she was.
For you to, yeah, I do. Honestly, because it was it was supposed to have been his family member. But I didn't know at that time. He told me it was his neighbor who was 16 and I was 17. So he said what he needed to say to get me to agree to do the threesome.
The crisis in Venezuela is at a critical point. We've got images here from this morning where protesters have been clashing with government forces.
Those are tires that are burning, that have been set on fire. You can hear their tear gas dispersing. The power struggle between Nicolas Maduro's government and opposition leader Juan Guaido is turning into a face-off over humanitarian aid. I believe, are these the live pictures?
Yes.
These are live pictures of what's happening there at the border. CNN senior international correspondent Nick Payton Walsh is live from Cucuta, which is in Colombia near the border here. But look at what has happened to this bus. It looks like they're just throwing rocks at it, breaking all the windows. It is chaos there. Nick, tell us what you're seeing from where you are there in Colombia.
Yeah, this is sort of the central key crossing between Colombia and Venezuela. And you're seeing to my side here a row of Venezuelan riot police who are effectively marking the border here. My foot is actually on the line that would be considered the border in the last few hours or so. It's closed at the moment, but the scene here is extraordinarily tense because, as you said earlier, the 3 Venezuelan soldiers here have given themselves up to Colombian migration officials, accepting an amnesty held out by self-declared interim president and opposition leader Juan Guaido. He said, if you want to join our side, we'll basically forgive your previous crime, so to speak, for the Maduro government. But the point about today is it's the deadline in which they've set to get aid from Colombia, tons of it, some of it supplied by the United States, into Venezuela over here. Now, the key point being that the aid continues to edge closer towards where we're standing. These riot police are constantly being negotiated with by these protesters here, sometimes simply shouted at. One man saying, I haven't seen my daughter for 2 years, I'm a refugee, she's still inside. Another man saying, my grandfather died because I didn't have the medicine that I needed to look after him. Real human tragedy on both sides of the border, and in fact slightly further down the bridge a group of what seems to be pro-government protesters. In fact, there was a strange moment where both sides were joined in unity singing the national anthem. That's how close these people possibly are in their hearts, but they're divided by this line of riot police. And slowly we keep being told to move back because they say the aid is coming. The central message, and one I think this scene being something that the Venezuelan opposition and Donald Trump's White House would have been very keen to see play out today, is that there are people across here who simply want to get humanitarian aid into the needy inside Venezuela. And the message we keep hearing from protesters is today is the day the aid's coming across, whether you like it or not. And that, I think, is where people are concerned. We may see escalating tensions in the hours ahead. This is one of several points along the border where similar things are being attempted. Back to you.
You're there, Nick, in Colombia, but what we're seeing on our screen right now, in just the last maybe 30 seconds, the fire on this bus has really kicked up. We saw a group of protesters, they're pushing the bus next to this building. Now the building is on fire, showing how quickly this is escalating. We know that our CNN team has seen Venezuelan National Guard fire rubber bullets in the direction of a group that was there on the border as well at another location. But we're seeing just how things are degrading quickly here in this part of Venezuela. You can hear the cheering. I'm going to pause for a minute so you can listen in. Nick, the crowd around you, because the shot is so tight, how many people are there?
I would say actually here quite a small number, but the scene we appear to be seeing here, riot police dropping their shields. This is quite extraordinary. Riot police dropping their shields. A moment of calm. A moment of calm here. Because they have been appealing to these men to give themselves over, to hand themselves over to Colombian migration officials and accept an amnesty, as we've seen earlier on. And the shields have been up until now. Now, we're not seeing anybody crossing the line just yet, but it is remarkable that you join me at this moment where Venezuelan, on this side in Colombia, protester, opposition loyal, is now face to face, without a riot shield in between, with Venezuelan riot police. It is quite an extraordinary moment. It is the closest we've seen here to some sense of amnesty. We're just going to ask this gentleman here if he will speak to us at all. Why have you lowered your shield, sir?
Señor, ¿por qué bajaste el protector?
¿Qué significa?
And they don't want to speak. You see, obviously you have to remember that those who work in the Venezuelan security forces depend upon their position, depend upon their salary for food. Often there are boxes handed out amongst the armed services that frankly feed your family. So the choice that man made, looking down and drinking water here, is most likely because he's worried his family may go hungry if he doesn't talk to us, or he may simply disagree with the opposition movement. But if you look at this scene here, there is extraordinary calm. They have constantly been appealing to people to, in fact, allow the aid through gently and hand themselves over. But this extraordinary moment here is the moment of unity where you see that line of shields, you saw it yourself, coming down. Now that will be a moment of great shock, I'm sure, for those loyal to the Maduro government, frankly, because seeing a moment like this, where these are, you might say, their line of defense against that very symbolic moment if the aid organized by the United States and the opposition crosses from Colombia, where you can get food very easily, into Venezuela, where it frankly is a nightmare to get hold of. If they begin to change their mind or crumble or look as relaxed as this, then Maduro in Caracas today, seeing protests along the border, closing many of his borders, will, I'm sure, be extremely nervous. Back to you.
Nick Payton Walsh, we appreciate it. Do stand by there, Nick. We're gonna keep watching what's happening where you are. But let's get back to that area in Venezuela where you are seeing that bus burn, and now it looks like that building next to it burning as well. Stefano Pozzebon is there. Stefano, what happened there that made that?